Shalom, everyone, and today we are learning two parashot, BeHar-BeHukotai, the last two parashot of the book of Vayikra, Leviticus. Starting on chapter 25, Leviticus, verse 1. And here comes the name of the first parashah of the two. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe, Behar Sinai Lemor. And God speaks to Moses at Mount Sinai. Now the question is why Mount Sinai is mentioned, because all the mitzvot were given on Mount Sinai. Why to specify Mount Sinai in this context? The answer is very not complicated, simple, we can say. It is always being read just before the holiday of Shavuot, which celebrates Mount Sinai revelation. So there's no coincidence, and that will answer, I think, the most important question, issue, topic in a human life. How do we achieve a life of peace, tranquility, safety, certainty? People put their efforts all their lives to achieve these goals, which means, why do people want to be successful when we're talking about learning, finding a job, finding a good job? So we can say, yeah, a lot of people want to get rich, but no, before that, people want to be secure. They think the richest you are, the more secure you are. Is this uh, the real security? Yes and no. We know that people are well-to-do, people are richer, they can afford better security, which means better security for their household, better security when we're talking about medicine, to get, have access to better medicine, medical care, all of that stuff. It's all about security, certainty, and basically securing our lives and the lives of the people that we call family. However, if we look around, we see that something very weird. The more safe society is, which means we're talking about the last century, uh, the transformation in the security of most people, which means having access to accessible medication, accessible living, um, all of that, which means if we're talking about the last century, how life expectancy around the world improved tremendously, it means that we're supposed to feel more secure. However, why is it that although on the factual basis we're supposed to be more secure, we have so much insecurity in our society that leads to so much uh, unstable mental state? Uh, so basically, we go back to the idea of achieving security. Now, the answer of the Torah, and that's what the Torah is dealing with these two parashot, Behar and Bechukotai, how do you achieve real, true security? And that question is the Torah is questioning that, which means we have over here in Parashat Behar, most of the parasha is about the Shemitah, which is the story or the laws of the sabbatical, which means when you live as a Jew in the holy promised land, the rule applies to you only in Israel, that, as it says, I am going back to Leviticus chapter 25, verse 2. Verse 1 we read already. God speaks to Moses at Mount Sinai, saying what? דבר על בני ישראל ואמרת להם, speak to the people of Israel, to the children of Israel, and you tell them, כי תבואו אל הארץ אשר אני נותן לכם, as you come to the land I'm giving you, ושבתה הארץ שבת לאדוני. And the land will have Shabbat. From the word Shabbat came sabbatical in English. Shabbat LaHashem. What is sabbatical? The seventh year. The same way you have Shabbat, the seventh day, which means every seventh day you stop working. Not in the field, not online, any kind of work, any kind of making a living, you have to cease from the entering of Shabbat, which means just before sundown on Friday afternoon, till the end of Shabbat, which is when the stars come out at the end of Shabbat. Shabbat, Saturday afternoon. And the same way you have every 7 days a Shabbat, okay? You have also every 7 years Shabbat of the land. Veshavta haaretz, and the land will have a Shabbat. Now, the Hebrew word for Shabbat, Shabbat, it's a mixture of seventh, Sheva, and Shavat mean Veshavta haaretz. It's a verb, and the land will rest, will stop, will strike. Today, modern word, when workers declare strike, it's called shvita. And the worker who's striking, he is shavat, the same verb. So what does it mean in Hebrew? Shavat means you're not working, not a cessation of work. Sabbatical. Verse 3, Sheshanim tizra sadecha, for 6 years you will plant the seeds in your field. Sheshanim tizmor karmecha, for 6 years you're going to take care of your vineyard. Ve'astafta et tivota, and you will collect the harvest. Uvashana shvit, verse 4, Shabbat Shabbaton yeh la'aretz. On the 7th year, Shabbat Shabbaton. This is Shabbat, and there's a double language, Shabbat Shabbaton, which means no, it's a kind of it's Shabbat without any compromise. Yeh la'aretz, for the land, Shabbat la'Adonai, Shabbat for God, Sadcha lo tizra, you don't plant in your field, you don't treat your vineyard, so, and comes the whole idea that on Shabbat, you cannot plow, you cannot plant, you cannot even trim the trees. You just total cessation of any kind of what we call agriculture. You just leave the land alone. The land has Shabbat. You can work, not on the field. You can build a house. You can do a lot of stuff. Yeah, you can take stones from the field to build a building. You cannot remove the stones in order to prepare for the next year's planting. Same action. If you do it for the building, you can collect the stones. If you collect the stones in order to prepare the field for planting, you can't do that. Okay, so we have over here the understanding that you have to give the field a sabbatical. The field has to rest from you. Okay, and so who will eat the crops? You know, you have a plantation of avocado or dates. Who are going to eat? The animals, the poor, whoever wants to eat, they can come into the field and eat from the crops. And you can't prevent them from doing that. And then it gets even worse. וספרת לך, verse 8, שבע שבתות שנים, שבע שנים, שבע פעמים. And you'll count a cycle of seven sabbaticals, which means 7 times 7. And you'll have 49 years for a cycle. And then at the end of the 49th year, ועברת שופר תרועה בחודש השביעי, בעשור לחודש, and then on the seventh month, on the 10th day, which is Yom Kippur, you will blow the shofar. ביום הכיפורים, on the end of Yom Kippurim, you will blow the shofar all over the country. And then you sanctify, וקידשתם את שנת ה-50 שנה, and you sanctify the 50th year. וקראתם דרור בארץ לכל יושביה. It's going to be a sabbatical of the sabbatical. Yovel. Yovel in English, Jubilee. Just realize that the Yud in Hebrew turns into J in English. Yerushalayim turns into Jerusalem. Yovel turns into Jubilee. It's Hebrew words. Okay? Anglicized. And on that year, the 50th year, it's more than a sabbatical. It's like all the slaves go to freedom. More than that, whoever sold his field gets his field back, which means the Torah explains very precisely, you don't really sell your field, you lease it till the Jubilee, till the 50th year of the cycle. So if you sell your field that are 10 years left for the Jubilee, so you pay for 10 years of crops. 20 years, 20 years of crops. So you're not really buying land or selling land. You're basically leasing it for a certain amount of time. Today, it's very similar in Israel. Most of the lands in Israel belong to either to JNF, the Jewish National Fund, which belongs to the Jewish nation, or to the Israeli Authority of Lands. And you don't buy the land, you lease it for 50 years, 49 years, something like this. And then you have to renew it every Jubilee. So most of the lands in Israel. So the same concept is there. So the Torah explains it. So then comes the very important question. We know, especially in lands on the border of the border of the desert, like Israel, which means that Sahara Desert starts in Beersheba. South of Beersheba, it's already the strip of Sahara Desert climate, which goes down to the Sinai Desert, Egypt, Libya, Algeria, all the Sahara strip, very thick one. North of Beersheba is Mediterranean climate. So Israel is just on the border. And that means that, first of all, most of Israel is desert. Second of all, the desert sometimes encroaches to the north, and then there is very common drought. So the question is like this. For a normal farming life, every year is basically a struggle. Every year is a challenge. Now, once in 7 years, you have to leave all the crops, to leave the land fallow. Don't touch it. You can't. This is logically impossible. Every human, every regular mind says, how can you run an economy this way? Especially in biblical time, that more than 99% of the economy was based on farming. Farming of, single family farming lots. Basically, according to the biblical law, that was the economy in the what we call the Jewish or Israelite society from the time Joshua led the children of Israel into the land of Canaan and turned it into Israel. till 15, more than 50, almost 2,000 years later, when we're talking about as long as there was a majority of Jews in the land of Israel, it was mostly family-owned properties. That started to change from when we started the Greek Hellenistic colonialism, encroaching little by little into the land of Israel, basically taking from the natives, the Jews, their lands and turning it into the colonial economical structure that was under the Greek and then the Roman colonialism, in which the single family lots were exchanged with huge properties by a huge landowner who usually, that was the Greek and the Roman system, to turn the natives into serfs, slaves on the land that was previously their own land. So the change from the what we call the biblical Jewish economical structure to the Hellenistic and then the Roman structure was also a change that is economically based. Okay, from a structure that was made of free human beings that had their own source of income and that went through the family for many years, to the structure that we see later on in Europe that turned from the colonialist, imperialistic system into feudalism till the end of the Dark Ages. So, of course, this is a total different way of thinking. When you have free people, what does it mean, free people? So we are coming to verse 20. וכי, on chapter 25. וכי תאמרו מה נאכל בשנה השביעית? And when you are going to say, what are we going to eat on the seventh year? And לא נזרע ולא נאסוף את תבואותינו. We cannot plant seeds. We cannot harvest the crops. Verse 21, וציוויתי את ברכתי לכם בשנה השישית. And God says, and I will order my blessing to you on the 6th year of every cycle. ועשת את התבואה ל3 שנים. And there will be enough crops for 3 years. וזרעתם את השנה השמינית ואכלתם מן התבואה הישן עד השנה התשיעית. Why 3 years? Because you have to eat for the 6th year, for the 7th year, and the 8th year. Because at the 8th year coming, you are finally planting till you have the crops. It's the end of the 8th year. So you need to have 3 years crops, especially also in the Jubilee. This is a very strong idea that is called a leap of faith, which means you need to let go. And by the way, the name in Hebrew for the 7th year is Shemitah. The common name is Shemitah. Shemitah, translated into simple English, is let go. Okay? In simple English, I'm holding an object. I'm letting go. That's called lishmot. Lishmot means to let go. Let go of an object or let go of the field. Do you understand what does it mean? As a farmer that owns his land, you think it 24/7 how to improve the crops because you want to feel safe, yourself and your family. Okay? 7th year, you can't think about it. You have to let go of the field. Oh, even if you think about it, you cannot do anything about it. Let's say even you decide, oh, there's a field that you got it as inheritance. its quality is not so high because you cannot plow it. Too many stones. So if you want to prepare it for planting by creating a terrace or prepare, no, you can't. You have to let go of that field. You cannot even plow, clean, uh, uh, add some fertilizers. They knew about fertilizing in the ancient times. You cannot do anything about this kind of sort. You have to let go of the field. You can pass by, look at it, do nothing about it. Oh, if you want to eat, you're hungry, you can go to the field, whatever you find, you can take. But you cannot take more than what is needed for your own consumption. Crazy idea, crazy. I don't know if anybody can understand the idea, but remember, during the ancient times, still not long ago, relatively, only the Jews rested on the seventh day and did not work, did not do business. You know what? Along those years, we can see that Jewish people survived in a most of the time very hostile or on the edge of hostile environment surrounding, still working only 6 days and surviving. And you have to survive. In order to survive, you had to make much more money than the money that was taken away from you. Which means when the king was in trouble financially, who did he go first to get the money from? The ones who were less protected, the Jews. To go to the serfs, they had no money. So you go to the big landlords. They were strong enough to fight back. Uh, if you know about how the Magna Carta was created, King John I was in very, very hard place. England at that time was on the edge of bankruptcy. So all the great landlords of England, they said, you want us to stand behind you, you have to sign the Magna Carta. Okay? So there was a leverage. The Jews had no leverage. You could do with them whatever you wanted, and still Jewish communities survived. And okay, so at the end of the 13th century, the king was in England, was so hungry for money, he threw all the Jews out of England, took all the money, and the geese laying golden eggs was gone. Now he had to wait for a long time, but that was okay for the British kingdom. Now, later on, it was done the same thing, the end of the 14th century by the French and the end of the 15th century by the Spanish. So when we come into the 16th century, Jews were not allowed to live in most of Western Europe, not in Britain, not in France, not in Spain and Portugal, and big parts of Italy that was under Spanish conquest. Still, Jews survived. How come? They didn't work on Shabbat. They didn't make money on Shabbat. Okay, the same idea of how did the Israelite or later on Jewish economy survived for almost 2,000 years when you do not work on the seventh year, especially that you have a competition by the other nations living on the same land. Okay, so this is exactly what we are talking about today. So the fact that people are making today so much more money than 100 years ago. Of course, 200, 300, 400 years ago. That today we are much more well-to-do than our ancestors. Do we feel safe? The fact that you have much more money than your grandparents, usually, by average, does that mean that you feel more safe than them? You're less depressed than them. You have more certainty than them. Not necessarily. What if you have all what we see in modern society, insurance, savings. Still, you don't, when you come deeply inside, there's one thing that you need to have a real sense of peace and tranquility. And this is what the Torah is saying over here. It's faith. Faith in God. So why the number 7? And here we go back to the original question. The original question is why, as Rashi, the greatest commentator ever, and by the way, if it doesn't know, he lived in France towards the end of the 11th century. Very, very, very bad time for Jews. That was the time of the beginning of the Crusades. And the Crusades, when they started, they had like the enemy in front of them, the Jews, infidels. So first, let's kill the Jews and save Europe. And then we'll go later on to kill the Arabs, but it took them a while till they get to the Muslims. So the Jews were just in front of them. So the Crusades started by killing Jews, especially in the area that Rashi lived. How did he survive? There's all kinds of legends. Leave it alone right now. But he did survive. So otherwise we won't have his vast commentaries over the Torah, the prophets, the whole Tanakh, and the Talmud. Okay? Which is huge work. At the same time, he was running a business. Okay. So let us start again from the beginning. And Rashi is saying, Ma inyan shmita etzel Har Sinai. Why do we have to mention Mount Sinai while we're talking about Shemitah, or the 7th year that you have to let go of the field? Rashi is giving kind of a answer that he's just giving, many times he's giving a question. The answer is kind of, you feel that it's not really complete because he wants you to think. And the Zohar makes it easier. What is the Zohar speaking about? The Zohar is giving us two kinds of answers. The first one is about the idea of real, true freedom. What does it mean, freedom? Real, true freedom, says the Zohar, is when a human being is capable of getting outside the box. And how would that happen? When you have freedom, the Zohar says, Zohar Sulam, verse 6, to Patach Rabbi Elazar. Ki tikneh v'divri sheshanim yavot. If Rabbi Elazar is reminding us, we have a very similar cycle of 7 years when we learn Parashat Mishpatim, the beginning of Parashat Mishpatim. When you buy a Hebrew slave, he will work for you for 6 years. On the 7th year, he will go out free, to freedom. Okay? So the question is, what does it mean, freedom? You can see a lot of times a person is working for many years in a steady job. It's a kind, let's say, he's a civil servant. He belongs to the unions. He has a retirement plan because he belongs to a big, big union. Nobody can fire him. He can come to work, nine to 5, doing almost between 9:05, coming at 9, doing 0, going back on 5, and no one can. I'm just giving the extreme. And in these kinds of organizations, which there are no consequences of not being productive. Why? It belongs to the government. Who will watch you? Okay, it's not a private entrepreneurship that if you don't work, you're going to basically be fired because The owner will say, oh, we're checking all the time how much he pays for your salary and benefits and stuff like this, and how much are you bringing in? And if you don't, he fires you. Unless, again, big unions give you certainty. You won't be fired no matter what. Still, people like this do have anxieties. Once I was invited to one of the to the chairman of the union of one of the biggest Israeli uh, ministries. Okay, and I was asked to give Kabbalah classes, program for Kabbalah classes for the people in that ministry. And the head of the union said, it is known that in government organizations, we have the highest level, statistically, of depression and mental issues. Why? So you're supposed to have safety. Why do you have, why do you feel depressed? Why do you feel stressed out? Why can't you feel serenity, tranquility, and peace of mind? You are supported by the biggest unions in the country. Okay? It's like it does the numbers are not they're not right. It's not logical. And the answer is like this: the Zohar is saying, in order to achieve true freedom, cherut, true freedom, you need to have rest from the klipot. What are the klipot? Shells, negative forces. Menucha yesh ba, there is rest on the seventh year. It's a rest from judgments. The klipot, negative forces, who create the negative forces? We create them, which means negative forces are being generated by the human being. How? We'll see. But we know, whoever studies Kabbalah, it's very much about responsibility. Who creates my klipot? I am. Some of the klipot I didn't create the way I know myself. Some of them I am carrying them around who knows how many lifetimes, and I carry them one lifetime after another till I basically remove them. When somebody passes on and he has a legacy of klipot he did not sweeten or remove, he has to come for another lifetime till you do it right, which means we have a very powerful concept, which is about uh, taking responsibility for your own blockages, judgments, negativities, or shells. Shell, something that prevents you from accessing what is good. Let's say if you eat a walnut, okay, you cannot just take the walnut and eat. You have to break the shell first. You want to eat an orange, you have to remove the peel. In Hebrew, it's the same word, klipa. Or if you eat avocado, you can't just bite the avocado. There is a peel you have to remove, klipa. Klipa is something that prevents you from accessing what is desired. What is really desired? Rest, peace of mind. How would that be achieved? And the answer is, how do you achieve peace of mind? Verse 7 in the Zohar of Parashat BeHar. BeHar, by the way, has a numerical value of 207. 207 is O, light, which means Mount Sinai, revelation. It's a kind of, what's the word? It's kind of a riddle. Mount Sinai, Mount BeHar is 207, light. Sinai is also the numerical value of Sulam, a ladder. This Mount Sinai, the experience of Mount Sinai, is the experience of experiencing the wisdom of the Torah, while the wisdom of the Torah is the ladder towards enlightenment. Again, if you want to see Mount Sinai revelation as the descending of religion, which means a very strict system of laws that prevent you from doing whatever you feel like and putting some boundaries on everything you do, most people perceive religion, especially the religion that is based on Mount Sinai, the way it developed into the religions, the what we call the monotheistic religions of the Dark Ages, and what came out of them till this day. Still, the idea is, what is religion? It's many, many rules that you have to basically, uh, what's the word? You have to be obedient to a power bigger than you, a power higher than you. So what is the religion based on? Submission. Submission to authority. Submission to authority, and therefore the religion of the Dark Ages was, was developed as a political structure of basically control, controlling people's lives by all means, which means everything that you do, your relationships at home, family, business, everything has to be under the supervision of your religion. Slavery. The way the Zohar, and that's a revolution that the Zohar created when the Zohar was revealed. We know the Zohar was created according to tradition before the Dark Ages started, which means if the Dark Ages, according to the Jewish writings, started at around the year 240 CE, okay, 240 CE, around the time we start to see how religion is starting to be politicized as a system that there's no separation between church and government. Okay? That continued till not just the end of the Dark Ages, we're talking about 16th century. That continued even 250 years later till we start to see the French Revolution, the American Revolution beforehand, and the other revolution that came afterwards, in which there was a separation of church and state. Still till today, the perception of organized religion is control, putting boundaries. You can't, you can't, you can't. You have to ask for permission from the whatever religious authority. And that's why people today, when we have a market economy, you have a choice to live outside of the religious structure. So in countries, this is possible. The exodus from those structures is getting bigger every year till we see, like most of Europe and also America, bigger and bigger numbers declare themselves as unaffiliated to any religion. A lot of the people do believe in a higher power, but they cannot associate themselves with the religious structure of what we call, again, the organized religion. What the Zohar is saying, that Mount Sinai revelation was not the birth of organized religion. It was the opposite. It was about how to connect on a base of a uh, individual, the individual right for freedom and the right for happiness, to connect to freedom, not just on the mental aspect, but also on the economical aspect. And that should be achieved by following certain rules. Verse 7, come and say, בואו, ה' מנוחה של עליונים ותחתונים, משום זה יש ה' עליונה דהוויה שהיא בינה, ה' תחתונה דהוויה שהיא מלכות, ה' עליונה היא מנוחה דעליונים, ה' תחתונה היא מנוחה דתחתונים, ה' עליונה הוא סוד 7 שנים 7 פעמים, דהיינו מ"ט שערי בינה, ה' תחתונה הוא סוד 7 שנים בלבד, זו התחתונה. Translation will be really hard, but let me try. The number 7 is the representing the seventh dimension, the seventh sephirah, which is Malchut. Malchut means kingdom, means the vessel, means me. For instance, how many directions can my mind go to? Right or left? 2. Front and back? 4. Up or down? 6. Me? 7. Number 7 is that idea of Malchut. Why? Because the way I perceive myself, that will determine how do I interact with my surroundings. What does it mean? If I am really focused only on myself, me, myself, and I'm totally self-focused on, I am in a dungeon. This dungeon means that, if we are talking about the metaphysical universe, we know that number 7, Malchut, means I. And what is I or me? I want. My desires. The vessel. The vessel is needs, desires, lack. This is the engine for everything. However, how could I fulfill my lacks and desires? The last few centuries, when people go away by droves from religion, okay, and I justify it. Again, religion became a political structure of subjugation, okay? When you can see yourself free from religion, and then you deny the existence of God, and then you deny the existence of a soul, and then you deny the existence of the metaphysical realm. So you live just on the physical plane. You're supposed to be free right now. Nobody tells you what to do. They're only the boundaries of legal structure of a democratic society that people decide that how to give you the minimum boundaries in order to have a functional society. What is the result? Emptiness, individualism, seclusion, hedonism, narcissism, which means people are busy the whole day. How could I indulge myself the most? How could I satisfy myself the most? Everything is okay if it makes me happy, but you don't really reach menucha, which menucha means a real sustainable peace of mind. You can have some menucha just for a very short while. The rest of the time, we are pretty much in a nervous society. And So what is the solution? And the Zohar says, when you count those cycles of sevens, which reaches the 50th, which means every cycle is built upon two forces. One is the seventh year, and the other one is the Jubilee. Or we always read Parashat BeHar during the counting of the Omer. Counting of the Omer is a very powerful mitzvah according to Kabbalah. If you don't study Kabbalah, it's a very weird mitzvah. You have to count 49 days from Pesach till the holiday of Shavuot, Mount Sinai Revelation. And what does it mean? Every night you have to make a blessing. The blessing says, blessed are you, God, the Lord of the universe, that ordered us to, sanctified us and ordered us to count the Omer. And then I count the day of that day. Today is the first day, the second day, the fourth day. If it's the eighth day, is 1 week and 1 day. If it is the 15th day, it's today's 2 weeks and 1 day, and so on. You have to count the weeks and the days. When you count 49 days, the next night is the holiday of Shavuot. And Shavuot is commemorating the Mount Sinai revelation. So, in Mount Sinai revelation, in the Talmud and in the Zohar, there's one thing about it: freedom. What is really freedom? Freedom from judgments, freedom from klipot, from shells, from negativity. How do you achieve that freedom? So the Zohar says, when Malchut, the seventh, the me, is united with the upper vessel, the upper dimension, which is one above. You can count 49 and one above is number 50. The 50th gate, that's a concept. The 50th gate means connecting outside the box. Or you can find it in other places. The eighth counting, like Hanukkah, 8 days, circumcision over the eighth day. It's a very precise idea, which means the box is 7. Outside the box, it's either 8 or after 7 times 7. After 7 or after 7 times 7. Depends on the frame. What does it mean? Because you have to connect to the supernatural. How do you connect to the supernatural? There are two ways. One is called idol worshiping, or another way, black magic and witchcraft, which is you connect to the supernatural by still using selfishness, which is the worshiping of the instant gratification. I want power, spoke about it last week. The more power, metaphysical power I get, I am more powerful physically to subjugate other people. Till today, you can still find that in civilizations that still believe in dark magic. Like, you can still find shamanism, idol worshiping, and witchcraft in many, many cultures around the globe. Still, the idea of idol worshiping goes together with how do I connect to the supernatural in order to subjugate others by strengthening my selfish powers. Okay? But there's white magic, which is the Torah. How do I connect to a higher power? However, this can be achieved only by purification of our ego, our selfishness, our negativity, our klipot, our seclusion, which means Mount Sinai revelation was achieved reading Parashat Yitro in the book of Exodus. After it says, Vayichan Sham Yisrael keneged Ahar, and the nation of Israel camped as a single person, as one person, one heart in front of the mount, which means Rabbi Ashlag explains that when the whole nation accept the idea of loving others as yourself, which means I have, in order to achieve divinity outside the box, I have to give up my egotism. I have to give up my negativity. Then the lower hay, which is the lower vessel malchut, can tap into the upper hay, which is the divine world, or what we call the world to come, olam haba. How do you do that? Again, purification, which means the only way you can access the supernatural legally, which means according to the law of the Torah, is by giving up not your own freedom, by giving up your selfishness. And it's not the same thing. The freedom can be achieved only by the connection to total faith, emunah, which means how can you connect to the outer supernatural realm? The supernatural realm is a realm of force, power, and wisdom, unlimited. As long as I'm holding on to my ego, selfishness, and regular thinking, I am disconnected from that supernatural plane. What the Torah is teaching us, you want to achieve freedom, this is what it takes. You have to let go over your thinking that holding on to the logic of the senses, the logic of your ego, the logic of your box will give you sense of real control. That will never give you the freedom. Why? The more control freak you are, and I think we all know that, the more freak we are, the more obsessive we are with control, the more subjugated we are to anxieties, to what will people say, what will people do, what will the weather be, what will politics do to my business. This is total subjugation to obsessive fear, and that brings judgment, klipot, which means that is creating the energy, the force of darkness that prevents me from accessing everything that is good. How do I redeem myself? How do I create a real certainty? How do I let go of my fears and anxieties that basically are my bondage? It's not what other people do or say. It's how do I react to it? Which means there are people that whatever other people do or say, or even just you think they said, gets you into a drive of obsession. And you're subjugated to it and you're a slave, eternal slave. Another way is when you have total connection to a higher power. It's the only way to redeem yourself from that slavery. That connection to higher power, that letting go of I want to be in control of everything. You can't. There's no way. With the limited access to information our brain has, remember that. Only when we connect to godliness. Verse 8 in the Zohar of BeHar. וכשמסתכלים בדברים הכל אחד, when you look at things, it's all one. כי המוחין דיובל, those, basically, מוחין, it's coming from the Hebrew word moach, brain, but it's not the brain, it's the app installed on the brain. We all have almost the same brains, basically. What's different is the app we install on that brain. What is that app? Our education, our environment, what we read, what we see, what we hear, what we imagine, that creates our state of mind. This is the box. How much can we rise above the box? Depends also on the apps we install in our mind. That is what Mount Sinai Revelation was about. Was about the dissension of a new app, the app of the Torah. Using that app allows us to access freedom. Again, what is freedom? Made of two. It's a state of mind that is above the box. That is a state of mind that says, that's a basic of Jewish culture. We can see it as the words of the first prime minister of Israel. He was not a religious Jew, but he was raised in a Jewish society. He was part of a Jewish society. What did he say? He said, whoever lives in Israel and does not trust miracles is not practical, which means if you do only what is logical according to your limited brain, you won't go that far. However, if you just trust the impossible and you dare and you take the risk, it's called a startup. Well, that's what a startup is about. Declaring Israel independence 77 years ago was the biggest startup. The chances were, like all the experts, the chances were none. One little Jewish community of 600,000 people, knowing that 7 Arab countries, including Britain, because Britain was standing behind those armies with weapons, advices, especially behind the Jordanian army. So fighting 7 armies of 7 states and an empire like Britain, well, you have no real organized army, and you declare independence in such a dire situation, this is really a startup that you have all the chances of a startup. Less than 50%, much less than 50%. Still, the impossible happened. And Israel won and established as a state, although, like the Americans, all the great leaders of the world who cared for the Jews were trying to convince Ben-Gurion not to declare independence. And he did, against all the odds. Why? Because if you don't go for the impossible, you are going to be subjugated by your brain, and that will never lead you. So that brings us to one of the most powerful Zohar readings. And this is based on verse 52. As we said, and you ask yourself, what are we going to eat on the 7th year? And if it is a Jubilee, it's the 49th year and the 5th year. 2 years of not harvesting. and not planting. Rabbi Yehuda opened in a verse, Psalms 37. Uh, just a second, it doesn't have the. Okay, that's Psalms 37:3, which says very clearly, trust God and do good, בטח באדוני ועשה טוב, שכן ארץ וראה אמונה. Live, dwell in the land, and you will, the word re'eh, like the Lord is my shepherd, emunah. Emunah is faith and connection. This is one of the most important pillars of reality, of existence. לעולם, says the Zohar, לעולם יהיה אדם זהיר באדונו. A person always have to be careful about his master. There's only one master. וידבק ליבו באמונה עליונה, and his heart should be attached to his master with this divine faith. Why? Because only then you can be complete with your master, the only master. There's no other master, not other human beings, not diseases, the bank. There's only one master. And that's called the divine emunah, faith. Only then you are complete. That is about complete in Hebrew, shalem. That's why Shabbat. Everybody's working on Shabbat. Let's say you have a business on 47th Street, on 5th Avenue. You're Jewish. You close your business on Shabbat. All your neighbors open on Shabbat. They claim, and the numbers say, you make more money on Shabbat than on the other days. Why are you doing something so unreasonable? Close it down on Shabbat. Shabbat, we call it Shabbat Shalom. Shalom does not mean really peace. It means shalom from the word shalem, complete. Only when you connect to that frequency of real completion, heart, body, and soul, you connect to the supernatural force that is the real flow of real sustenance, ideas, what we call the higher power, what we call outside the box. Without that connection, you'll never be complete. It doesn't matter how much money you're going to have. I met a lot, I repeat that so many times. I met a lot of people all around the world that are so rich beyond imagination. They are so nervous, so psychotic, so neurotic. You feel so sorry for them. Does that mean that we preach for poverty? No. No. But if you are not having that essence that is called shalem, that essence is the ability to be connected between the lower hay and the upper hay. If you look at the Tetragrammaton, Yud, K, Vav, K, the lower hay is number 7. The upper hay is the 50. Number 50, Bina, the world to come. When you can connect and your lower hay and upper hay, the world to come and this world together. For that, you need what? That app that when you study Torah, and nowadays, especially when you study Zohar in Kabbalah, Slowly, slowly, and when you meditate on the Tetragrammaton and the holy names, your brain is downloaded with that app that is about shalem, shalom, shlemut, completion. You're not complete when your brain is only based on the five senses. You're not complete. No matter how much money, how much power you're going to have, no matter the environment, you could be put on an environment that, let's say, is perfect. You'll always have klipot, shells, that won't let you access real fulfillment, real rest. That's it. That's what Mount Sinai is about. In order to achieve that, you need to go by the tests. Shabbat, one example. Shemitah, another example. The Jubilee, another example. It's the concept that do not steal. I can make a lot of money. I can do so much charity. I'll steal from a billionaire. He will never notice even. No, do not steal. You cannot steal and stay free. That's what Mount Sinai said. You cannot steal and stay connected to shalem, shalom, to that frequency of wholenessness, completion. Similarities attract. How do I download that awareness? That's what the Torah is about. So when we come to Parashah BeHukotai, it speaks about the same idea exactly. And Rashi says that, Im BeHukotai telechu, I'm reading Leviticus 26:3. Im BeHukotai telechu ואת מצוותיי תשמעו. ועשיתם אותם. If you will walk in my chukot, and you observe my mitzvot and act upon them, that's the translation into English. And Rashi is saying, just saying, the chukot, laws, are not the mitzvot. Why do you have to repeat? If you repeat, it's not the same. You have to remember, the chukot are all the laws beyond the five senses. What are the tests about? It's not a test in Hebrew. In its mistranslation, Nisayon, says the Zohar, Va'Elohim nisa et Avram, and Abraham and God tested Abraham. The Zohar said that's not wasn't a test. Nisa comes from the word nes, miracle. What's a miracle? Getting out of the box. Leaving the box to the world of freedom and completion, to the eighth dimension or the 50th. How do you do that? Abraham is trusting God while his brain is saying, slaughtering my son, it's against everything I was teaching all my life that God is about. How could I do that? I'm not following my own teachings. But I don't know. I have to trust that God. So the Zohar says Nisa means in Hebrew test, but it really means Nes. Nes means to flee up and above. A miracle. Getting out of the box. So we are being tested. Sometimes you have to be put in the corner and you have a choice. Either that will kill you or you reinvent yourself and you create the miracle of reinventing yourself outside the box, and you go out to freedom. And finally, you release yourself. But that can be only when you follow the rules of the Torah. These are not religious rules. These are the rules, as it says, of affinity. You want to connect to infinite bliss energetically, money, power, health, happiness, and sense of freedom, you must flee the box. These are the rules that it says, "Im bechukotai telechu," following my laws. How are you going to follow the laws? You have to look at the mitzvot. What are the mitzvot? Shabbat, tefillin, kosher. They are not there to test your loyalty to God. There are your tools that when you act upon them, they will connect you to superpowers. You're not doing them because God scared you. You're doing them because God gave you a way out. How to download that app of freedom, that app that connects you to superpowers. What is a superpower? When you face logically, this is the end. I've lost everything. And you say, just a second, I can be here and go out of my mind, out of my senses, or I can trust and connect to God, to faith, to the supernatural. And what will happen will be the right thing. And then you let go and let God. And then you realize that what you have built in the past is gone, falling apart. And something greater is coming out of the ashes. The Sphinx. The Phoenix. That idea. Or you realize that what you were thinking was limiting. And you reinvent yourself, thinking out the box. And the most important, when you are feeling shalem, complete, a whole, your logic changes. Your reasoning is changing. And then the solution to your problem will be a different solution. A solution that is coming from the whole is not the solution that comes out of stress, pain, slavery. This is what this app is about. This is what Mount Sinai is about. This is the counting of the Omer is about bringing down one little part of the app every day of the 49 days. After we did bring in 49 parts of that app, 51 are missing, 10 by 10. Eser Sefirot of Eser Sefirot, 10 Sefirot of 10 Sefirot. The rest is coming down on the night of Shavuot. And that's what the whole story is about. Every year on Shavuot, we're receiving that app again. The Torah is an application. It's a state of mind. Is an awareness of what? Freedom. Freedom means when we are feeling like a whole, when we feel the infinite light of the Creator coming from the supernatural, from the upper hay, from Binah, from the level that is called the Jubilee, then only you think freedom, you feel freedom, you feel out of the box. Then you solve the puzzle. Then you solve the problem. Then you free yourself. Then you redeem yourself. It's the same process of humanity's redemption that we are all waiting for. Shalom, shalem is a whole, and that's the only way out. Thank you so much. Read the Zohar, scan the Zohar, study Torah for that purpose only. Meditate. We have on our site meditations. Meditate, livekabbalah.org. Look for that, for these meditations. You expand your mind. You bring down and especially the night of Shavuot, studying the whole night. is to bring down that app that is about experiencing much more freedom. And that is a source of true, lasting happiness, certainty, health, whatever you mean, the real one, not the fake ones. Thank you so much. Good luck for us all.